I have no idea what really causes propulsion in the water. And anyone that tells you they do doesn't know either. Hi everyone, Andrew here, helping you help your swimmers get faster. This is a quick fire controversy. We'll tackle a controversial topic in swimming skill development, and I'll let you know what I think. If there's one you'd like addressed, drop it in the comments below. To move forward in the water, swimmers have to create propulsion. But how do they do it? There's been lots of ideas put forth in the past, but there's been no real consensus beyond we don't really understand what's happening. And there are a lot of reasons that that's the case. And a big part of it is that it's really hard to measure propulsion. When we understand what's happening from a fluid dynamics perspective, it's very difficult to get actual measurements. It's very hard to get accurate pressure measurements. It's very hard to get accurate force measurements, and that makes things very difficult. It's not necessarily hard to get numbers, but making sure that those are accurate and measuring what we actually want to measure is not so easy. The magnitude of the pressure and the force matters. The direction of the pressure and the force matters. Where the pressure and the force happens at different points in the hand matters. The direction of the hand relative to the body, relative to forward motion matters. And most importantly, everything is changing all the time at every single instant. And so it becomes very difficult to understand exactly what's happening, and whatever numbers we can find and create, it's hard to know what they really mean. So when it comes down to it, we have lots of ideas, we have some theories, there's not much consensus. One of the ideas from the past is that Bernoulli's principle, which is responsible for airplanes flying and the forces that are created based upon the flow over the wing and then under the wing, that's been thought to create propulsion in swimming. The problem is that my hand is very different from a highly engineered airplane wing. And for that reason, a lot of the physics don't apply to what the hand is doing as compared to an airplane. Another theory that's been put forth is that vortex behavior and vortices are involved with creating propulsion, and vortices are definitely created when swimmers pull and when they move their arms and legs through the water, and that behavior is pretty predictable. However, it's not necessarily clear if those vortices are actually creating propulsion or they're just related to something that's happening when propulsion is created. There's some better evidence that it's happening during underwater kicking and dolphin kicking, but the evidence is a lot less clear when it comes to the arm actions. And the arm actions are what's creating most of the propulsion to help swimmers move forward. More recently, there's evidence that pressure differences in the front of the hand and the back of the hand are related to creating propulsion. However, the jury is still out on that one. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't any takeaways. So if you look at all the research, one thing that has been consistently shown to result in more propulsion is that there's a backwards acceleration of the limb. In a lot of different contexts, in a lot of different situations, that's shown to be true. So while it doesn't necessarily help you understand the physics of what's creating propulsion, it does provide a clue as to what swimmers actually need to do to create propulsion, and that's accelerate the limb throughout the stroke. And that's to accelerate the limb backwards throughout the stroke. Another clue is if you look at the evolution of swimming skill in elite athletes, there's a trend to more direct and more simplified stroking patterns that are moving more backwards in nature. Swimmers are tending to use more direct patterns, and they're positioning the arms in a way where there's a large surface area that is facing backwards, and then that surface area is moving backwards. And a final clue, although a lot more anecdotal in nature, is that one of the big changes over the last 20 years when we've seen a lot of improvement in terms of how fast swimmers are going is that resisted swimming in the water has become much more widespread. And one of the consequences of resisted swimming is that it encourages swimmers to apply forces backward, and it encourages them to use a much bigger surface area in order to move a lot of water backwards. So again, regardless of the specific mechanisms of what's creating propulsion, if swimmers can create big surface areas and accelerate them backwards, that tends to produce speed, that tends to create propulsion. So regardless of how propulsion is created, it's pretty clear what swimmers need to do. Faster swimmers do a better job of creating a big surface area to move water backwards with. They maintain that surface area throughout the whole stroke, and they do a better job of accelerating through that stroke. And since propulsion is propulsion, those strategies are conserved across the different strokes. And because those strategies are conserved, it's likely that there's some truth in that approach. Even if we don't understand why something is happening, it doesn't mean we can't work with it and understand it from a practical perspective. Do you really understand what gravity is and how it works? No, you probably don't. But you're also not going to step off a 10-story building. You understand the consequences of gravity. And so propulsion works the same way. Even if we don't understand why it's happening, we can get a pretty good sense of what swimmers need to do in order to maximize it. If you want to learn more about what elite swimmers do to create lots of propulsion, check out this video here.